NBA season is back. What is going on, y'all? Fox Sports Talk back at it with another video. Talking, of course, some NBA. I know you guys have been waiting, and I am here to deliver at your service, and that is talk about the NBA season and give my playoff predictions. You guys see the whiteboard behind me. This is, of course, the whiteboard video where I will be giving you guys all my playoff picks and predictions before I do so. If you're new to the channel, welcome, guys. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. It helps me out a lot. Go ahead and support by clicking the big red subscribe button, and go ahead and hit the bell icon as well to be notified every time I drop a new video, because I do so a lot, daily, weekly. And make sure to follow me on my social media, guys. The link's down below and on the screen for my Twitter, my Instagram. Folks, you guys can talk, debate, do whatever. I'm here for you guys, okay? Reach out to me. I'm here, okay? All NBA season, I am here with you guys. So with that being said, I'm going to be breaking down the conferences, East and West, give you guys my picks for, again, who makes the playoffs, who doesn't, and then eventually give you guys my picks on who wins this year's NBA championship. So without further ado, let's get started. So we'll start with what I like to call the gimmies, which is basically, okay, we pretty much know this team is going to finish at this spot in the conference because you know why, okay? And we'll start with the Eastern Conference and make our way to the West. And one thing I do know for sure is the Eastern Conference, in terms of the Eastern Conference, the worst team in the Eastern Conference is the Charlotte Hornets. And they might be the worst team in the entire NBA, but certainly the Eastern Conference. So I'll go ahead and put them at the bottom here because they are that damn awful, okay? And there's a couple more teams that are very awful in the conference that have no shot at the playoffs, okay? And let's be real about it, okay? We'll go to the Washington Wizards, who have no shot at the playoffs, and then we'll go to the Cleveland Cavaliers, who have no shot at the playoffs. I don't want to have to explain this. If you guys do need me to explain, I will say again, Hornets have nobody. They let go of Kemba Walker. We all know that. And they signed Terry Rozier, yeah, but they're not going to do anything. Go look at their starting lineup, okay? Just go look at it. It might be the worst in the NBA. Wizards, no John Wall this year. Yeah, they re-signed Bradley Beal. But do you really expect them to do anything with Bradley Beal and a bunch of nobodies? I mean, they're starting for guys like Thomas Bryant, for Christ's sakes. I mean, it is bad, okay? The Cleveland Cavaliers, Kevin Love's going to get traded, folks. I mean, that roster is in complete rebuild mode, okay? So, again, didn't want to have to explain it, but since you guys made me, there you go, okay? Let's move on again to a team that I don't think will be very good. And I'm already starting to hear the boos from Knicks fans that are watching. Sorry, guys. The New York Knicks, yeah, they made a ton of moves in free agency. They signed like 4 power forwards. They drafted R.J. Barrett. They signed a couple other players. And I do think this team will be improved, but not enough to make it the playoffs. They'll be a little more exciting. R.J. Barrett's a nice young player, but it's not going to be enough, folks. Let's be honest about it. Knicks fans, you guys know this, okay? Let's move on to now. To me, these are the clear 4 worst teams in the conference. And now we can move on to the top of the conference, okay? So we got rid of the garbage, the cellar, if you will. And we'll move on to the top of the conference here. And we already know the top 2 teams in the conference by far. And I've got the Sixers and the Bucks. We know that, okay? They're the best teams in the conference. They're legitimate title contenders. The only title contenders arguably in the East, which I'll talk about in a second. But you've got the Sixers, who are absolutely loaded. They added Al Horford. They added Josh Richardson. Their starting 5 is stacked. They still got Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, and Josh Richardson, and Tobias Harris. And again, this team is loaded. The Bucks didn't really add as many stars, if you will, as the Sixers did, but you still got the MVP Giannis. You still got Chris Middleton, who made the All-Star team last year. You added the other Brook Lopez. You added the other Lopez brother and Robin to alongside Brook. So you added a bunch of guys, again, that will help the depth of this roster. The one big loss was Malcolm Brogdon, which is why, to me, the Bucks are the number 2 seed, not the number 1 seed. Okay? So there you have it with the first 2 teams, and those are locked. So now we get to, from 3 to 11, this is a little bit, okay, these teams could go up or down or whichever way. I don't feel that strongly about 3 to 11. Maybe 3 I do, but not 4 to 11. And 3, I have the Boston Celtics, who should absolutely make the playoffs. They signed Kemba Walker. They re-signed Jaylen Brown to an absolute monster contract, 4 years, $115 million. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know if that was the best move, but he's a decent player. You still got Jason Tatum. You've signed Enes Kanter, who's a solid offensive center. So this team will absolutely make the playoffs, but they lose Kyrie Irving, so let's be honest about it. And Kemba Walker's a good player, okay? And Kyrie Irving and Kemba Walker, they're arguably, you can make a comparison on who's better. It's an argument, okay? But I have the Celtics there. Then next up, I've got the Indiana Pacers. Yes, that's right, the Pacers. A lot of people tend to forget the Pacers, folks, but they're a very good team. They're a very solid team, okay? They're getting Victor Oladipo back. You got Domantas Sabonis, who had a very good year last year. They re-signed him. He's going to be starting alongside Miles Turner, who I like is a very good defensive center. And then you've also got Malcolm Brogdon, who I mentioned they signed from the Milwaukee Bucks. He can play both guard positions. The Pacers are going to be a good team. Very good, solid defensive team. I believe they will be a playoff team for sure. Let's move on now to number 5. And 5 and 6 are pretty interchangeable, but again, let's talk about it. We've got the defending champs. Yes, can't forget about the Toronto Raptors. They did lose Kawhi Leonard, the Finals MVP, and the best player on that team, but you still have everybody else, Kyle Lowry, Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, who got a monster deal. He's the new star for that team now. Alongside Kyle Lowry, you still have Marc Gasol. So the pieces are still there. Everybody is actually still on the roster besides Kawhi Leonard. So they will still be a very good team. They'll be a playoff team, but as far as championship contender status, yeah, it's over. The window's closed. Okay, let's move on to number 6. And this is a team whose window didn't even open, and it won't open yet because their main player is out, and that is the Brooklyn Nets. And we all know that Kevin Durant probably not going to be out, probably not going to play this entire season. You've got Kyrie Irving, and you've got a roster that made the playoffs last year with a bunch of, decent players. Karis LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie, I like. Jarrett Allen, but again, they don't really move the needle. So again, that's why I have the Nets as a playoff team, but not much more. Certainly not title contender. And now finally, 7 through 11 is really a wash. I mean, any of these teams can make the playoffs or miss it, okay? But these are my picks. I'm going to go with the Detroit Pistons. They still have Blake Griffin, still have Andre Drummond. They signed Derrick Rose, who to me is going to be a valuable addition off the bench. You still have Reggie Jackson, so I believe they are going to be a playoff team, okay? And then finally, at number 8, I've actually got the Chicago Bulls. A lot of people are sleeping on this team, and the Bulls did not have a very good record last year. Only won 22 games, but if anybody watched that team, and I did, they missed a lot of games with their star players, Lauri Markkanen, Zach LaVine, Otto Porter Jr., who they traded for halfway through the year. Their stars were not playing. Wendell Carter Jr., he wasn't playing. This year, if everyone's healthy, they drafted Kobe White, who I like a lot. And they should be a very good team. Zach LaVine, a lot of people, a lot of experts and analysts expect him to make an all-star leap. And the same thing can be said about Lauri Markkanen. So you've got 2 guys with all-star potential, a third who's got a very solid future in Wendell Carter Jr., and potentially a 4th in Kobe White, who people expect to be very good. And then Otto Porter Jr., the 5th guy, who people know is one of the best 3-and-D guys in the NBA. Okay, so they're a very good team that a lot of people don't mention in terms of the roster, okay? And I shouldn't really even say very good team. I should say they're a very underrated team, okay? With an underrated roster. That's basically why I have the Bulls here. And let me explain with the 9, 10, and 11. We've got the teams that are left here. The Miami Heat, who signed Jimmy Butler, but they don't have a lot of other players. Tyler Hero is nice, but I like Bam Adebayo, but you don't really have as good of players outside of Jimmy Butler. At number 10, the Atlanta Hawks, who I like a lot. A lot of good young players. Obviously, Trae Young is phenomenal. You've got John Collins, who I like. They drafted DeAndre Hunter. Very solid young roster. But again, are they ready to make the leap to the playoffs? Maybe, maybe not. And then finally, to close this out, you've got the Orlando Magic, who made the playoffs last year. And this is the team I'm taking out because I just don't believe they'll make the playoffs again. They have the same exact team coming back. Nikola Vucevic, DJ Augustine, Evan Fournier, Jonathan Isaac, Terrence Ross. It's literally Aaron Gordon, the same exact team. And I think they overachieved last year. I just don't think they're going to do it again. So if you were to compare, let's say, 7 through 11, I mean, what's the most talented roster here? You've got Blake and Andre Drummond. Okay, you got Zach LaVine, Lauri Markkanen. You've got Jimmy Butler, Trae Young, Vucevic. I mean, so 1 star to potentially 2. That's my reasoning for it. So there you have it, folks. My playoff predictions for the Eastern Conference, 1 through 8, and then who's going to miss it, 9 through 15. Now let's move on to the Western Conference, and the West is a little bit tougher than the East because we don't have a lot of, awful teams. Now we all know the East is the inferior conference, so the West is way more loaded, so it's a bit harder. Now I will say there are certain teams that I'm very confident won't make the playoffs, so let me go with those teams, okay? And we'll start with number 15, and again, you guys might be kind of surprised that I'm putting them here because they've got some players right now that are decent in the Oklahoma City Thunder, but I just don't believe they'll keep them. Okay, they've got Chris Paul on the roster. They've got Danilo Gallinari. They've got Steven Adams. I believe they trade all of them. You don't trade Russell Westbrook and Paul George in the same offseason and expect to contend for even a playoff seed the next year. The Oklahoma City Thunder are tanking, folks. Let's not sugarcoat it. There's no way they aren't, okay? So all the players they have right now in CP3, Gallinari, and Adams, I believe they'll be traded by the deadline, if not before. Okay, so to me, they're tanking actively. That's why they traded away Russell Westbrook and Paul George. So I have the Thunder as the worst team in the Western Conference. Let's move on to number 14. I've got the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, I like the Grizzlies core. Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. I don't like much else. It's not a very talented team. They know that. They're rebuilding. They just traded away Mike Conley. They traded away Marc Gasol. We see the writing on the wall. They are rebuilding. Okay, so Memphis Grizzlies at 14. Let's move on to number 13 in the Minnesota Timberwolves and another roster. I'm not saying they're actively tanking because, again, they've tanked before and they don't need to do it multiple years. It seems like every year they could be tanking because they're bad. But the roster just isn't very good. You've got Andrew Wiggins, who's, again, a very polarizing player. Doesn't really do much besides score the ball. Karl-Anthony Towns, we all know he's good. But what else outside of that? Really, no Ricky Rubio. You've got basically a roster that has guys like Robert Covington and guys like Josh Okogie. So to me, I don't see much with this team in terms of talent. So there you have it. The Wolves at 13. And then at 12, the dysfunctional Phoenix Suns. Yeah, if you think the Phoenix Suns are making the playoffs, good luck. I like Devin Booker. Okay, I like the core pieces here with DeAndre Ayton and Booker. And Kelly Oubre's solid, but really, folks, they don't defend. I don't like their coach. I just don't think they will be very, very good. And certainly not going to make the playoffs in a loaded Western Conference, okay? Now let's move on to the top of the conference before we get back to the rest of the teams here that I expect to miss the playoffs. And I'll say this about the West, okay? The West is all about who plays every single night. So load management. Any team that has players with load management, hint, Lakers, Clippers, they're not going to necessarily be the number one seed. I'm not saying they can't. I'm just saying we all know that they have bigger things in mind than winning first place in the Western Conference or winning the conference. Yes, they will absolutely be top teams in the conference, but when I give you guys my prediction for who I believe will be the top team in the conference, that doesn't necessarily mean they're the best team. Just means they're probably going to have players play every single night because the Western Conference is a gauntlet every single night. And I'll start with the Utah Jazz as my top pick to win this conference. Yes, you might be very surprised. I'm very high on the Utah Jazz. I mean, Quinn Snyder's my pick for Coach of the Year, folks. And the reason why, they signed Mike Conley, so now they have a legitimate point guard and a second scoring option to go alongside Donovan Mitchell. You still have Rudy Gobert. Yes, you lost Derek Favors, but you've still got Jay Crowder. You've still got Joe Ingles. You added Bogdan Bogdanovic. This team is stacked. They are absolutely loaded. And key, they will have their guys play every single night. Nobody here is going to miss any time with load management. So I've got the Utah Jazz. Offensively, they'll be good. Defensively, they'll be elite. Okay, let's move on to number 2, the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets, I believe they're the 2 seed last year. Why not? Why can't they do again the same thing? Loaded from top to bottom. They're getting Michael Porter Jr. back, who's making some noise as potential Rookie of the Year, award type noise. And you can tell that the Nuggets are going to be very good. Joker could be an MVP, Nikola Jokic. You've still got Gary Harris, Will Barton, Paul Millsap, Jamal Murray. I mean, the list goes on. And again, same reasoning here as the Utah Jazz. You can actually interchange both these two teams. I just picked the Jazz because I'm a little higher on them, okay? Now we've got the Clippers, okay? Now we've got the Lakers, and again, I shouldn't have to explain here, but again, both teams, again, are going to be very good with AD on the Lakers, with Kawhi and PG on the Clippers, and again, the only reason I have the Clippers above the Lakers is just because I believe, maybe AD and LeBron sit out a little bit more. Again, you can interchange it. I'm not, super convicted about it. But that's who I have as 3 and 4. 5, we've got the Houston Rockets. I believe they'll drop off here with the addition of Russell Westbrook, who I don't think is very, very good. He's a very inefficient player. Doesn't really make teammates around him better. But again, he's still very talented. We've got Harden, Westbrook, still got Eric Gordon, Capella, PJ Tucker. They'll be a playoff team for sure. As far as title contender, it's another discussion, okay? Let's move on to number 6, the Blazers. CJ Dame. They'll always be there. Number 7, the Golden State Warriors. Now, some people have them missing the playoffs. I don't. I still think they will be a playoff team, mainly in part because of Steph Curry and Draymond Green, and of course Steve Kerr. They added D'Angelo Russell. If they didn't add D'Angelo Russell, I might, have reservations here. But I do believe they will still have enough firepower here to be a playoff team, and Steph Curry is going to have a monster year. Okay, so there you have it with my top 7 teams who I feel very convicted about. 8 through 11, I'm not so sure. So I'm just going to write them, and then we'll talk about it, okay? We've got the Spurs here at number 8. And again, they're virtually returning the same roster. So not much in terms of improvement. But if we take a look at the other teams here that I've got the Mavs at number 9. I've got the Kings at 10. And I've got the Pelicans at 11. Do you really feel that much better about any of these teams than the Spurs? Yeah, I like the Mavs with KP and Luka. Certainly could make the playoffs. Kings are an up-and-coming team. Are they ready to make that leap? I don't know. The Pelicans, no Zion for the first 8 weeks. That's going to hurt their chances. So to me, the safest team was the Spurs. Can't bet against Ray Popovich. Haven't missed the playoffs in over a decade. I'm going with the Spurs, folks. So there you have it. My top 8 teams for the East and the West, and the teams that are missing the playoffs as well. So these are my playoff predictions. So now that we've got the entire playoff picture set for the East and the Western Conference, it's time to talk about who is going to take home the crown and be the NBA champs, because that's really what you guys and I care about. So I can go through the entire first round, second round, etc. But listen, let's just get to the important stuff, the Eastern and Western Conference Finals. So who is going to make the Eastern and Western Conference Finals? And I think in the East, it's pretty simple. We've got the Sixers and the Bucks, okay? The 2 best teams in the conference. Really not much analysis needed here. So I've got the Sixers and the Bucks. Maybe you can interchange the seeding. Again, I've got the Sixers higher than the Bucks, but it doesn't really matter too much. The West, much harder. You've got, at least to me, 6 teams that could potentially make it to the conference finals in the Jazz, the Nuggets, the Clippers, the Lakers, the Rockets, the Blazers. And so it's much harder. I will say, though, that I do think the Clippers have arguably the best roster. So I'm going to put them here. And I do want to put a team like maybe the Jazz or maybe the Nuggets here. But it's very tough for me. It's very tough for me. I'm just going to say I'll pick the Lakers here because, again, we know when it comes to the postseason, star power matters, and that's really what it comes down to, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and let's go back to the East, and I'm just going to tell you guys I like the Sixers. I do. I like them a lot to not just, obviously, beat the Bucks and win the East, but I just like them in general, okay? But especially against the Bucks, I think they have way too much star power with Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, Al Horford, who they added, Josh Richardson, who they added, and then Ben Simmons. He might have a jump shot this year. Sixers making the finals. Okay, they're a lock to me. As far as the Western Conference, okay, I'm going to go ahead and say, look, it's a toss-up for me. Which duo would I rather have between PG and Kawhi and LeBron and AD? I probably have LeBron and AD. But then the rest of the roster for the Clippers looks a little bit more deeper than it does for the Lakers. It's not very clear to me. And again, this is where the tough decisions need to be made, right? But I'm going to go with the Clippers for a couple of reasons to make the finals over the Lakers. One, the better coach. Doc Rivers is better than Frank Vogel. 2, I believe they've got a deeper roster. You've got Patrick Beverley. You've got Lou Williams. You've got JaMychal Green, Maurice Harkless, Montrezl Harrell. Like, it is a deep roster. Yes, the Lakers have Kuzma, Danny Green, but then after that, it gets very barren. I mean, you've got a lot of Dwights and JaVale McGee's, Rondos. I'm not a big fan of that. So, overall roster-wise, I'm going to go with the Clippers. Now, here's the fun question. Sixers, Clippers, who wins the NBA championship? Drum roll, please, okay? Imaginary drum roll in the background. I am going to go with the Sixers. Yes, that's right. The Sixers will win the NBA championship, and the process, as we know it, will be complete, folks. Trust the process. That is how it all started. Well, the process has been trusted and has been completed. The reason I like the Sixers over the Clippers is because I believe the Sixers just have a better roster. I'm telling you right now, nobody on this Clippers team can handle Joel Embiid down low. It's not possible. Not Harrell, not JaMychal Green, not Ivica Zubac, none of them. So Joel Embiid's going to eat. So will Al Horford. You've got two very capable guys in Tobias Harris and Josh Richardson to probably try to slow down PG and Kawhi. And then you've got Ben Simmons, and who's going to check him? Patrick Beverley. That's like a 6-inch height advantage. So to me, roster-wise, I will take the Sixers over the Clippers. I just think they have a better roster, more star power, and they're the better team. The process will be completed. The Sixers are your 2020 NBA champs. And just to throw it in there, Joel Embiid, Finals MVP. So there you have, folks, my pick and predictions for who wins this year's NBA championship. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree. As always, thanks for watching.